Hello friends, welcome to English or 10th class. Ready, 1, 2, 3, start. We have been given to understand from the publicly known plans for the Central Vista Redevelopment Project that the National Museum of India is to occupy what are currently the South Block offices of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of External Affairs, as well as the North Block offices of the Home and Finance Ministries. These buildings were designed by Herbert Baker. The Parliament House building designed by Edwin Lutyens is to be turned into another museum, apparently a museum of democracy. The national capital could, in that case, potentially have a grand plaza of 3 extraordinary interconnected museums in the vicinity of the Rashtrapati Bhavan itself. What a spectacular statement they would make to the people of India and the rest of the world. The problem is that we would have to wait for the north and south blocks to be emptied for the museum to move there. The new residences and offices of the Prime Minister and the Vice President of India are to be positioned at the bottom of Raisina Hill, sandwiching the cultural plaza between the most high security premises in the country. The approach via Rajpath will be closed and restricted access to this public space is inevitable whenever there is any movement of very important persons. There was a method to buy Lutyens arranged plots for the 4 cultural buildings on Queensway, Genpath, which intersected strategically at a safe distance away from Rashtrapati Bhavan on Kingsway, Genpath. Genpath had the plots for the Archaeological Survey of India, the National Museum, the area that later became the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts (IGNCA) and the Intellectual Repository of India, the National Archives. Together they formed a cultural district set within public gardens, an avenue where you looked up Raisina Hill in awe at Rashtrapati Bhavan on the one side as you looked toward the historic Purana Qilla beyond India Gate on the other. Disaggregation as leitmotif. That kind of vision of urban planning for a single linked cultural district seems to have been tossed out entirely. The IGNCA can now no longer utilize its open spaces for pavilions welcoming the people of India. It was a fine idea to have the land for the many living cultural traditions of India and their documentation at IGNCA just across the road from the classical or historical art in the National Museum. The educational arm of the museum, called the National Museum Institute, deemed a university, has already been relocated to Noida, while the Archaeological Survey of India's prized collections have been relegated to Greater Noida. The National Museum's collections may also have to be split up, some in the Red Fort, some in storage, some awaiting their new home. This aggregation, rather than unification of India's cultures and communities, seems to be the leitmotif. The aim of a museum of history, especially one that goes by the title of a national museum, is to be able to speak to its public and speak to the wider world about the history of India. In the past few decades, redefining a national project has become necessary in a world where families and identities are hyphenated. People are Indian while simultaneously belonging to some other part of the world. Speakers of multiple languages, Indians may also be from language groups Punjabi or Sindhi, Nepali or Bhutia, Tamil or Tibetan that are spoken by communities split between different countries. Our national identity has never been more this and that. The relocation of our National Museum provides an opportunity to think through its narrative at a decisive moment when India needs to see what it is projecting through its display and be aware of whom it is leaving out or relegating to different parts of the city. Aggregation of the differences then would have been a more advisable approach. The public's expectations of what they hope to learn from a visit to a museum is quite different nowadays to the intentions with which museums in India were created. Our history museums, on the other hand, serve to provide information as deemed appropriate by archaeologists of the early 20th century, with galleries divided into old-fashioned colonial themes such as Buddhist or Hindu art, Islamic art, or separated by material, painting, bronze and stone, for instance, rather than seeing them as historically contemporaneous. Gone are the days when objects could be lined up with the Buddhist labels identifying the object's iconography, its date and the dynasty whose reign it may have been made in. Even history textbooks have moved away from examining the succession of political dynasties to social processes instead. Museums must serve the requirement of telling multiple histories from varied perspectives for diverse audiences.